Good morning, everybody. It's ZuTime. My name's Alan Andres. I'm the founder of ZuCoins and ZuCas. Today is the 27th of September. This is episode 10, and this is a special one today where I'm going to reveal some real interesting inner secrets about Ezybonds, the unsung hero, and how that relates to the value of where we see the ZuCoins as an integral part of very tough 22 years of work. So my blood, sweat and tears and the team's blood, sweat and tears is going to pay dividends for those that are sitting with the ZuCoins and how that affects everybody. So this is a bit of an insight to the long, loyal investors that have been part of me for many, many years. This is going to give you a kicker and boost as well. And it's going to give some insights clearly as to the truth that's been happening. Finally, after many years, I'm in a position to reveal all and sundry and debunk some of those wonderful myths out there, which talk about my background and things, and let's put it in perspective. So, without any further ado, this is going to be very interesting. So, buckle up. Lock yourself in. It's not going to be short. You can visit this whenever you like, but this is going to be a public record once and for all for everybody to review at their leisure. So where do we start? Well, let's start with Ezybonds. Now, Ezybonds, contrary to these myths, has been going and has been continuing to go since the 17th of August, 1999. Now, that happens to be about 22 years consistently. So it's still going in its form, and it's had a long and arduous journey. Now, I won't talk too much about the Commonwealth case other than to touch on, and that's going to be another topic, by the way, because I think people need to realise what they get themselves into when we take at face value dealing with government and bureaucrats. And it's quite a torturous experience when you look at that. So in January of 1999, of course, we got whacked with court cases. And just in summary, we received 8.725 million, which we thought was wonderful from the government, promoting all its wonderful virtues of the internet back then, which we never denied receipt and certainly never denied repayment. But we got caught up in the government's incompetence, which we see today on scales beyond belief. At the end of the day, it was their contractor and their botch up in the way in which their software was controlling passwords. And these clowns up there actually had access to the full banking systems of the government treasury, and it was an unauthorised transaction. Now, coming from a litigation background and mergers, and we've had a wonderful time, David Samuel and Peter Kane, 10 years prior, that we built up our businesses of quite significant value in relation to that, and enjoying life. We were one of the many that had lots of trinkets and toys and enjoyed that time up to 1999 and never realised for 1 minute that these sort of long-term consequences can happen. And basically what happens is when the government gets pissed off, they throw all of your taxpayer money at everything because bureaucrats don't care about wasting taxpayers' money, let alone being accountable for it. And they just throw their legal resources and personnel at you, which means freezing of assets, losing the assets that you have in value. Particularly, we had about $200 million plus of value back then in terms of mining assets and projects. And if you can't fund those, you're stuffed. So we came off the front foot, initiated cross claims, which is on that 4.3 billion I talk about, and still ongoing. That game's not over yet. The point I'm making is that between that January period and being whacked and to the end of 1999, we had a great rethink, a strategy think, Peter and I, of asset protection and the way in which you go about that. Because that was never going to happen again. And it will never, ever happen again that you can't fill up the petrol tank because you've got no access to cash or reserves and you're not on a level playing field. It's not about fraud. It's not about all those issues. I mean, the only bloke that went to jail was David Muir, which was the government's own contractor. So think about that for a minute. We fought pretty hard in order to win those cases, which was significant and still going, despite even the issues with bankruptcy. That's just a joke, really. in any perspective when you look at it. But any new businesses we were creating, we were making sure that globally we were looking at the best jurisdictions in the world to protect the future build-up of assets. I mean, if you would think for a minute that any of you listening to this would put any single asset in your personal name, you have rocks in your head. Now, it's not about avoiding creditors, because if you're starting fresh, and we're all excited about starting new businesses, and I've seen this in my accounting day, mum and dad decide to open up a coffee shop, away they go and put their lives on the line. They sign the personal guarantees and they've got no assets that are tucked away because through no fault of them, along comes something like COVID and boom, she's gone. But you go bankrupt still because you've got no preparation for the protection of where you see your future is. Now, the takeaway from today and the experience and the secrets I'm going to reveal about Ezybonds is very important, because you guys as coin holders are going to make some serious money. It's going to happen. Now, it's no good sitting there today and saying, gee, I put it in my name and I've got some coins, I'm going to make some serious money. And then bang, along comes that claim out of left field. And it could be anything that comes out of left field. You could have someone slip on the floor in your business premises, and suddenly there's a compensation claim and litigation, or you're running a mining truck and you end up with a manslaughter charge, and you've got no protection because you didn't plan for the future of that wealth you're creating. And that's the trouble with accountants. Accountants sit there and they look at the historical data. They worry about the tax and they worry about the history of what you've produced, but they don't forward think about the structures and the way in which those structures work. It doesn't happen. An accountant will wake up one morning, you set up a business, and he says, oh, by the way, we'll set you up with a proprietary limited company and maybe a trust underneath, and let's start running with that project as you build your business. But what he doesn't tell you is that even in a private company, lo and behold, as a director, you have much director's duty problems through insolvent trading, that you can go to jail, which you don't deliberately want to go insolvent, but you continue to press and pay the bills, and next thing you're down the gurgler, but you put nothing away. So just think of that in the context. That's the first point, because there's going to be a topic on asset protection, and I'm going to share with all of our loyal followers a very simplistic structure that literally will, I'm not promoting any money here or anything. We're going to provide the documents free, and you can take them to your own advisors if so wish. That for less than a couple $100 of stamp duty, you're going to put yourselves in trusts, and everything you do in your life will be you as trustee, not as a company, because you don't want to go down the road of worrying about ASIC and corporations and all those laws and those wally things that come along. You as an individual, and we're not worrying about tax. Let's just get that out off the page. Tax is not a global strategy of avoidance. Pay the damn tax, because the greatest thing I tell everybody about tax is it's a wonderful experience. It gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling when you know the government's going to blow it up their ass, because they do. They get your money and they don't know, they can't manage money. I mean, they get trapped with it. Well, it's a great topic that I'm going to have one of my live broadcasts about how the inner sanctum of government works and the things we've seen as a result of our court action. But trust structures, very simplistic, means you can protect your ZuCoins. I'm interested in the way people can protect the belief. If you're going to make money, then protect what you think can happen in the future. Forget the past, move forward. So that's the first takeout of Ezybonds. The second is Ezybonds itself was one of the greatest investment coups that I've personally experienced because of other people's stupidity. Now, it's beggars belief how you can even contemplate the journey of Ezybonds, and I'm promoting and telling you today that it's one of the hidden jewels in our businesses that we have. Now, let's look at the journey of Ezybonds. Ezybonds is all about, as I mentioned in earlier episode, and I'd invite you to go back and look at those episodes, particularly number 7, and this is going to relate to lotteries, and also number 9 about the demographics and how important you need to put systems in place if you're going to capture that mass market. And you're going to, again, just focus in what I'm saying about mass market. It's one thing to get to the population. It's another to trundle your way through the regulatory issues. And I know the regulatory issues. I've been there, done that, and I've faced the consequences of what can happen through that regulatory journey. So I have the practical experience to share that and take advantage of that so that you get the benefit of it through that journey. Now, if you look at that process, Ezybonds is about the lottery. Now, I've talked about the lottery and the value and how big that is, and it still is today. It's enormous. And it's enormous because we now have the advantage of that glue being the crypto space, which wasn't around in the earlier days. It's actually enhanced it to a far greater value when you look at that mass market. So Ezybonds came about in August of 1999, and it was deliberately set up so that no one's going to touch that asset ever again. Deliberately, no question. Not here to avoid tax and all that dribble that goes on, but it was to protect that I was never going to go down that road of losing my future wealth that I believed we were going to and could create. Now, if you have a belief in yourself that you're going to make money, you will make money, but make sure you protect it. Don't go down the road, for example, of some great corporate tycoons in the 80s that got themselves so cocky with making money that even their own legal advisors didn't put in train and in place protection before they made the money. Okay, now that's the crucial bit. You can't go chopping and changing and trying to avoid creditors once you've made the money, because there's a whole raft of legal issues on retrospective laws in that regard. But you can put in place legitimately and legally these protection structures before you make a cent. Now, Ezybonds was created in that way, and it was created in a way through structures that I and Peter, through Davis Samuel, which is quite innovative and ingenious in way. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying that it comes from hard work and research and obviously the experience. But the structures was that we had private entities in trusts and structures. In this instance, the Cook Islands. There's no problem with the Cook Islands. It's one of the all-time great jurisdictions, and they're wonderful people. In fact, they've been 20 years ahead of the curve on some of the ridiculous corporate laws that we have here. If only others would take notice of those corporate law structures, then things would be a lot brighter for people wanting to make money within this corporate environment in Australia. But nevertheless, it was able to be flexible to allow what we call Regulation 2A for the lottery to happen. And that structure has now been replicated even in the Australian jurisdiction through trusts, which we call hybrid unit trusts. Now, the beautiful thing is the Cooks is a true asset protection regime. And if you do it right and legally properly, that's why Ezybonds was sitting in the Cooks for that purpose, to develop the software that would take the mass marketing at that time with the lottery. Because when I looked at the lottery, it was okay to say, yes, we've got this wonderful product. And then you start to look at, well, how can we service that product through the current payment system networks? And it was deficient. Now, I get frustrated as an accountant, an old accountant, ex-accountant, of the way in which the thinking goes. We have this amazing technology called computers and software and algorithms, and we still end up with this human input, the way in which those programs are developed and used. Now, I then decided that the journey would be that we would create our own global payment systems, which connects the consumer to the merchant. And we're not talking money remittance and stuff. We're talking about the ability to effectively transition the payment from person, consumer to business. Now, and vice versa, business back to the consumer, because you've got rebates and you've got products and things. And the lottery is just a product. It's just a merchant product that needed to be purchased through those deposits, if you like, and accordingly having those rewards. Now, I found that there was no software. Now, I know software systems like the back of my hand in accounting. I lived and breathed my life through how these back-end software systems work. And what I found interesting is it all revolves around the great accounting world of double entry accounting principles. Now, you're going to see where this is leading to, because I started to research and find out, well, why do we use this concept of double entry? Everything's got to have a matched up balance between asset and liability. On the left-hand side, there's your debits, and on the right-hand side, there's credits. Now, all of you young buffering accounting students out there, that's the journey that's been taken through universities and degrees, and that's the concept we accept. Now, when you go back into research and you start to realize, well, why do we have double entry accounting? Because guess what? I mean, the Romans had a similar thing, but they had a few problems with their numbering systems. But certainly post that, the real commencement was in the 14th century. In fact, 1400, and let me just get the exact date. 1486, 535 years ago, a mathematician who was a good mate of Leonardo da Vinci, he decided, and it's called Luca Pacioli, and he thought, well, this is a great idea. We can put a balancing process in place between debits and credits, and all of a sudden, it's like a set of scales. On the left side you got some gold, on the right side you got some rocks, and when the two meet up, well, you know that you're not going to get ripped off, and person goes away with the gold, or you can imbalance that, and that's the general thinking of why we had double entry accounting. Now, the problem with double entry accounting is you get yourself hamstrung on global processing. It makes it difficult on multi currencies, and that's why the banks have so much problems with ledgers and the way in which those ledgers work for efficiency in terms of transaction processing between those type of accounts. And on a global scale, if you think about our vision of the lottery, it's about multi currencies in the fiat world, and it's about now the ability to transact efficiently through the ZuCoin, your crypto. But the problem is it's very difficult to do that with double entry accounting efficiently. So eh, I don't know whether anybody's out there has actually gone in and try and get a foreign exchange account, but it's a frigging nightmare because it's just not an easy process. The way the banks have those ledgers stored and the way they interact with each other is an accounting disaster. And generally it works on, well, we'll do the fiat conversion and we'll allow that conversion to take place, which then puts it from pounds into Aussie dollars. And it's not a truly interactive because of this hamstrung problem of double entry since 1486. So I decided that I'd follow through and see if we can remove double entry accounting. And guess what? We did. Now, the beautiful part of the Ezybond journey is that I met a great guy, still with us and strong, and a very big supporter. Has got ownership of ZooCoins and is back in New Zealand now. But Peter Hamilton has been a magnificent friend through the journey of creating the vision of this payment processing capability. And I love you, Pete. You've been an amazing guy. Been a long, tough journey. So Pete's been around since since March of 2005, every day battling through what I wanted to achieve with a software program that eliminated double entry accounting. But it still visualizes the picture of where your assets and liabilities reside, but gives far more firepower to the computer systems when you want to split transactions and you want to have them in multi currencies. And guess what? It works. But it's taken 13 years. Now, the beauty of that is that it's so efficient that when you talk MasterCard and Visa, which have all these multi-conversions and they've got legacy systems of the way in which they record their data, you're topping out about 5,700 transactions per second. Now, in the crypto space, ZooCoin, we don't have that problem. ZooCoins is literally millions of transactions per second because it's instantaneous between the peers. But when you're dealing with the merchants and you're starting to look at the way in which you want to have referral systems and fractional items in those systems, you need the single entry processing capability in the algorithms in the software to allow that to occur. So we've built that. And we then wanted to work out how do we, at the cost, maximize the investor returns and also at the same time keep the entities private, obviously for the experience with the government that I've had, not wanting to go down that road and get bitten twice. We came up with a structure that the private entities or trusts in the Cook Islands would conduct all of the software systems and own those outright. And of course, offload a 60% royalty to the UK entity, which is Ezybonds UK PLC, listed so that investors get the benefit of the trading capability of those shares. Now, the royalty is a 60% royalty in perpetuity. In other words, the UK company had to do absolutely nothing. It didn't need to do anything in terms of the processing, the licensing requirements, the requirements of regulatory compliance, and I'll talk about that and how significant that was, and the cost exercises on that. All they had to do was sit back and wait for the royalties, which meant that would in turn produced the dividends that then related to the share pricing and value proposition of Ezybonds UK. Now, as we see, people are impatient. You got it. If you're going to be in this game, one is you take risks and you understand the risk and you know what you're going to lose or afford to lose. As I've said on many a time, there's regulators around the world that produce hundreds of pages of material for investors and no one reads the stuff. You can have a 10-star system. 1 star is blood up your ass, 10 is government guarantee. Pretty simple. And somewhere in between is the industry categories. That's the risk appetite. So we're not here to give you any guarantees other than we work our ass off to make things happen, what we believe we're going to increase our wealth through. And that's what Ezybonds was about. Now, as the journey went on, it's interesting, which I've outlined, the royalties in place. Now, we wanted to make sure that as a result of that, the valuation of what is Ezybonds in combination with the software and what is Ezybonds worth in combination with the royalties and the mass marketing. And there's a couple of things we had to overcome, as I said earlier, about the regulatory side. But nevertheless, on the 1st of August in 2013, which we're going to release for the first time to everybody, an independent report valuation was commissioned on this business model. And this sort of leads to reinforcing the globalization value of why I'm so comfortable that 4.3 billion is not a silly concept of taking that back from the government of what we were building and building the product out. Now, at that time, in August of 2013, Bank of Queensland released a saver account based on lottery. So it proved that the concept could move forward under Australian laws. All right, so that's not Alendras. That's a reputable bank that released, and I've been a member of that particular lottery program. It's since ceased, but nevertheless, it was released, launched, and the bank took a different direction in terms of where it was going with that product. And they should have kept going, because if they'd have seen British premium bonds now, Bank of Queensland may very well have $200 billion plus in its balance sheet. Now, the valuation was conducted by BDO, and the great news is any waffle you think or read about Ezybonds is absolute garbage. The valuation confirmed, which gave us a sense of strength and a sense of commitment to continue with the project all the way through, which again will relate to your ZuCoins and value and ZuCas. You'll get to that. I'll get to that in a minute. But that report came in that the 60% value of that royalty retained by the company, Ezybonds UK PLC, run by the 3 directors at the time, was worth £165 million. £165 million for the 60% royalty. Okay, it's an extensive report, and I'm going to release it because it means that the value of the 100% interest, if you take the software and you take the other 40%, which is in the private interests of my trusts, means that the whole project in its entirety at that time, that's when with tens of thousands of people on the system, not tens of millions of where that was going, and still is, by the way. But it comes out at £278 million, which for those in Australia is $514 million value. So why would I even contemplate or think about either that Ezybonds is tarnished or Ezybonds is not worth anything when that's in my back pocket in terms of value? It's something to persist with, but it's persisted with because we could asset protect it without some wally bureaucrat wanting to have another crack at assets because you are stupid enough to put it in your own name. So we were able to continue. Now, that was a $40 million build that came through those investors in Ezybonds UK. Now, what I will say is that if you don't believe or understand that, aside from the report, there is a public record that shows, without that report, but certainly shows from the High Court of Justice in the UK Chancery, that the transactions were approved based on that report. So it's been court endorsed. Ezybonds is legit, real, and endorsed by the court orders to that effect, based on the shares at the time that were issued and valuation proposition. So if you look at that, we've ticked the boxes on value. We know where we're going. We know what it's worth, and we want it to continue. And it's worth that because I've got to tell you of the firepower of the software. The software is unique in the world. I can tell you now, there is not another software system in the accounting world that has single entry algorithms that allow the ease of transactions. There will not be one. And that's the secret sauce, ladies and gentlemen, of Ezybonds and why it's so valuable, because it relates to the engine, that way in which we can work it through for the globalization through ZuCas. Now, as we go through the Ezybond journey, there's a lot of doubters out there, and you get all these, clowns that think they know what they're talking about, when in fact they don't research enough. Research is the key. So along comes an incredible character at that journey time called Charles Scoville. Now, Charles was one of the geniuses of marketing, and he has about 12 different entities where he has this product called Ad Hit Profits. Now, he latched onto Ezybonds. Why? Because of the firepower of transactional processing and the splits that we can do instantly at the time of any transaction that's paid from consumer to merchant. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you take one single transaction, which was for an Ad Hit Profit product, an ad product, the system completely allows that it could have, from that one transaction, there could be 25 simul transactions instantly split in 10 different multi-currencies at the same time. Now, that could be for referral fee splits, that could be for product splits, that could be anything that your mind can imagine instantly on the single ledger. There will be no bank, there'll be no processor in the world that will achieve that. Now, Charles was excited because he had this product and he launched it. And away he went. And what he did was, he said, this is incredible. This is the speed and efficiencies of splitting to the rewards of his program members, the excitement of that money going instantly back into those accounts because of that single ledger principle. Now, when you do 45,000 transactions, which are in terms of the product itself, and then you have 10 or 15 more multiple fractional splits, and you're talking 450,000 transactions within seconds, that's pretty powerful. Now, it was so powerful that we started to investigate the journey of Scoville and what his business model was about. Now, people say, oh, Ezybonds are a scam, etc., and all the rest of it. But you forget that since 2006, Ezybonds has been fully compliant as a designated registered money remittance profile in Australia under AUSTRAC. So every year since 2006, we monitor with our suspect transactions. We've been doing all of those reporting requirements as required by regulation under the Australian government laws for anti-money laundering and KYC. You can't afford to step out of line, especially when, I'm in another process and I'm suing the government, trying to sue their ass off, vice versa, this ongoing battle. But we still make sure that we had those processes and those remittance designated services in place, which is what we did. We report every year and we report all the transactions. And it came to our attention that Charles has been a bit naughty. Now, I made the call that Charles was running a Ponzi scheme. The maths never added up. The way in which the fractional thing was working was beyond belief. So we pulled the pin. I pulled the pin with the staff. We had our compliance meetings and we decided that this guy was going to cause us a lot more problems than it's worth. Because you've got to remember, if you're a processor, and particularly processing in America, it's one thing to process, because in America it's a different kettle of fish with money remittance licenses. But if you're a processor, you're going to get on the end of all of that litigation, which is subsequently what happened to PayPal, if you don't get onto it early and you don't report the matters. Now, we did that. Now, on the 4th of August 2014, we shut him down and we reversed the transactions and we had refunds paid to those members because those same members were members of Ezybonds, of which those payments went back. Others who were deliberately involved in his scheme, we didn't pay anything because they were fraudulently acting in relation to, in cahoots with Charles Scoville. Now, the lesson that we learned from Charles is what he was a genius at the internet marketing, which is why I get great amusement. I've got to say it again, that some of these young guys that think they're excited about being trolls, they are Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck compared to the way in which Charles Scoville could capture the market's imagination and write bad things about you. And that's what he did. He absolutely trashed Ezybonds. Now, everything you see in relation to Ezybonds that's been as a scam or whatever is all written and was posted and cached by Charles Scoville. Everything. There is not any independent third party. We look after our people through Ezybonds and our members, and I'll talk about how we did that with the shareholders, not to lose any money. I'm not here to make people lose money. You take the risks, but I'm here to work my ass off to make money for people and protect it. Now, Charles was a genius at that. And he had little videos, a little video going around about getting into Ezybonds, and he leaves out the good bits as to why we shut him down. Now, the great news was justice was served because some years later, and the date was the 26th of July 2016, the great Charles Scoville was whacked with civil and later criminal for running a Ponzi scheme in a new version. The earlier version was ad hit profits, and then it went to traffic monsoon. Now, it's one of the leading cases on Ponzi schemes. It's one of the greatest Ponzi schemes ever. He knocked off $207 million with 162,000 investors. Now, the good news is my people have been protected and are safe because we got out early, we canned it, and we lost about 800,000 as a result of his scheme. Now, I don't go whinging about the scheme and the money and all the rest of it. We've lost it, but we took early action, which was fantastic. Now, Charles has since been in jail. The scheme's been brought to a screeching halt. The SEC's been very successful in the court. And let me just paint this picture. Not only that, it came out that he had committed aggravated sexual abuse against children. So these people that go out there and promote the fact that there's YouTube videos about Ezybonds or marketing material that talks about how bad Ezybonds was, you're promoting a pedophile who's also been involved with Ponzi schemes. It's extraordinary. So you've got to be careful in what is being cached and recorded on the web. It's a dangerous environment unless you research. Now, when you look at that environment of Charles at the time, and we're looking at processing through America, now there's a lot of hard work in the American market. It's not an easy market, and it's all right to say I'm going to launch crypto or I'm going to launch lotteries, but you've got to look at the market, you've got to look at the laws and the regulations because you've got 53 odd states and each one has a different view on the laws. Then you have the federal laws and you have wire frauds and you have all sorts of incredible federal, potentially criminal liability as a result. So you can't just wander in and say, I'm open for business. You've got to do your homework, which is what we do and take our time with every step of the way as per the soft launch. And I need people to understand that. You know, when we talk about the humble SMS, there are serious penalties and fines, etc., for the way in which you behave by just sending an SMS, and you don't realize that. You as a consumer don't care, but we do because it brings things unstuck. So when we did the American process, because of the software and the way in which it records the responses between merchant and the consumer, what you don't realize is Peter Hamilton is a genius as well. Peter worked out that we could create not so much an identifier, but we could create unique systems in place that per every transaction, it records the responses from the merchant back to the consumer in a way that hasn't been done, that took us to a whole new level of compliance with US regulations on money remittance. Now, we're going to also release, because this is has a significant bearing on ZUCAS and ZuCoins in the US market. Now, you remember I talk about the simple payment from the consumer to the merchant. And in that instance, it could be for the very goods you want to buy using crypto. Now, as part of that, what you don't realize is that the engine that drives the ZUCAS, which is the value proposition in Ezybonds and the software and the compliance, we actually received, and we are one of the rare few entities to this very day, a complete exemption from the money remittance laws in the United States, in the state of Texas, which applies the same to the other states. Now, how big is that? Why is that important? Well, it's significantly important for a number of reasons, but the most important, now that Texas report, I'm going to release that because these things haven't been put to the market, and we need to share the why that makes Ezybonds even far more valuable, and why it makes your coins and ZuCas far more valuable. That report came in on the 14th of October 2015 from the Texas Department of Banking. And I'll just read you one line. You can read the whole report. And the one line says that based on the information provided in our review, we've determined that your clients, Ezybonds USA LLC and Ezybonds Inc., do not need money transmission licenses in Texas. Well, let me tell you something. If you need a money remittance license in Texas, unlike being a designated remittance license in Australia, where Australia is all about compliance and not a huge, at this stage, the regulators haven't looked at security bonds and things. But in America, every single state requires a surety bond. They also require enormous upfront fees. They also require annual fees. Now, the minimum cost across all 53 states is about 6.9 million US dollars. That's the surety bond. And it ranges up to 50 million. Now, most of them are in the mid-range, somewhere between 25 and 30 million. So PayPal, which is worth billions of dollars, it hasn't got a problem in stumping up 50 or 100 million dollars to meet those regulatory obligations because it's got the capital. But at the same time, it's not just the capital. You need thousands of employees to administer and manage every single state in relation to that money remittance licensing. You can't just have one team. Every state law is different in relation to the reports that are required. Now, as I've said, Ezybonds has to this very day an exemption because of the software and the way we process the transactions with the merchants, which is significant when you want to go back and think about how we're going to tap into 300 million people in relation to processing for systems using the advertising and systems that are using the ZuCas format that we've described, the product lines, each of those product lines, which I invite you to go back again. So the value is enormous in terms of what we've built in that journey through Peter Hamilton and the team over those years with Ezybonds. And that's why it won't go away. Ezybonds not going anywhere. It's still been running. The website's there. It meets its obligations and its requirements in preparation for as we launch back into ZuCas. Now, the funny twist to that is that even with all of that, is that a couple of things have come out. The Scoville thing's one thing that's done and dusted. He's sitting where he is, and I never flinched once in that journey or worry about it. But certainly people bring it up about this scam on Ezybonds. Well, do your homework and look at Scoville because it's all written by him, and it doesn't affect me one iota because we know where we've stood with it. But then you start to think about the pressure cooker that happened with Ezybonds UK. Now, this is one of the great myths that we need to debunk because it's a significant one that affects me personally and the way I approach people and deal with things. Now, there's a sector of people that know that my birth date's in October and I'm a Scorpion. And I think I'm a true Scorpion. Little Scorpions love each other. They get on with each other and away they go and they mind their own business. But by hell, if you agitate the Scorpion, watch out for the sting. Now, I'm a very loyal man, and I'm very loyal because the way in which I work is that loyalty is rewarded, and I'll do what I can. Now, there's not many bankrupts in the world, and I'm still fighting that, and I'll get out of that in terms of the litigation because I've got some exciting stuff there that will turn the tide on the government on that. They don't realise it's coming, but it's coming. It's coming. I'm hell-bent on getting that 4.3 billion for my shareholders. It's not Alan Endres, it's 1,393 shareholders that will seek the rewards of that plus interest. And the principle of the thing that they tried to ruin our businesses when everything is fully modelled and valued. And that'll happen as I sit here now. But the point was that if you look at that Scorpion type environment and the sting, there's a lot of people that I categorise in the good and bad camps. Now, as we went through this journey, the pressure cooker of the government actions, back then facing criminal proceedings, and I can understand all that from people outside looking in. But the three gentlemen on the Ezybonds UK board, two of them very, very close friends, not so much now, Sean McShane and Anthony Liston and and Phil Pryor, and this is all for public record, hasn't been talked about from my perspective, but certainly today's the day. They decided that they didn't want to be part of the Ezybond world, that it was all too hard, that they had other ideas in relation to where they saw the company going. Now, that's fine. And if you look at the way in which things could have been structured from their perspective, it could have been done in a far better way. But they decided, and bear in mind, one of the problems that I had with one of the members, Phil Pryor, was that his wife, Helen, was the referrer who introduced to Ezybonds Charles Scoville. So there's a bit of animosity there that, this wombat got introduced to our business through that connection, which caused a lot of angst and, of course, a lot of pressure in the public and the media. But nevertheless, bygones were going to be bygones, and we move on and proceed with the Ezybonds UK PLC as a listed entity with that royalty in perpetuity. Very valuable royalty. But they decided that they would unilaterally terminate the contracts based on all of the background issue and noise, and that Alan Endres basically was washed up and finished. Now, without thinking about the shareholders that had put 40 million into Ezybonds UK, they terminated those arrangements and lost that entire royalty value. Now, they could have put it into another entity. They could have done a whole lot of strategic planning that gave the value of that into a separate entity, pro rata issued to the existing shareholders, and give them something to hope for. But they didn't. They decided that they were clever enough to take over and run the company and enhance the value, the value in the longer term. Well, guess what? Now, the funny thing about that was that the contracts were terminated on the 19th of March 2015. And it came as quite a shock to me that these people that I've been loyal to, and they'd been loyal to me as well, had terminated the arrangements and brought it to a screeching halt. And it was sad. It was very sad. But at the end of the day, they did that and they moved on and they told shareholders what they're doing. And there's a lot of public available information. And they decided that they could create and buy off the shelf some software processing systems without reliance upon what we built through Ezybonds, and do it themselves. Well, guess what? Didn't work. On the 24th of April 2018, the company went into liquidation. Gone. The 3-year journey was a disaster. Now, I had nothing to do with the disaster. My assets were protected through the Cook Islands and around the world. I've got no secrets. I've got assets in trusts around the world. But all of a sudden, Ezybonds UK went down the toilet. Now, as part of that, I was hoping that maybe they could make Ezybonds UK work, because there's a lot of friends and family that had shares in Ezybonds UK that were loyal to me. And they've got nothing. Zip. Blown up their ass. And they walk away. No accountability. I'm here. I'm Alan Endres, founder of Ezybonds, founder of ZuCoins, founder of ZuCas, and I'm still here. And we've been working, beavering away. Now, the funny twist to that was, the most incredible irony is, because the contracts were terminated, my entities and trusts ended up with 100% of Ezybonds products, software, the whole lot, everything. I mean, it's like winning lotto. I mean, it's staggering. Now, that's a windfall on the books of value that's been there since day dot, which gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling about what we want to achieve and where we're going, and why I know values can make people wealthy and where we're moving, of $514 million. I mean, extraordinary. If you believe in yourself, you believe in your product, what a windfall. Now, this person that I am and wanting to look after people was that I couldn't stand seeing those people go down the toilet at the behest of 3 guys that thought they could pull it off. So, without any legal obligation whatsoever, I've been talking and communicating with for many months, 12 months more, to those people that supported me and given them upside. Now, morally, I feel good about myself, because those people have been, and already the Ezybonds preferred shareholders have received their entitlements in ZuCoins, and certainly the ordinary stockholders' entitlements go out shortly. Now, I can tell you now, based on the worth of ZuCoins, one group of those loyal Ezybond preferred shareholders will make 100 times their money. The other group will make at least 10 to 20 times, and that's on minimum proposition values that I've talked about, because we know we've got the network, we've got the compliance, we know we've got the software, and we know where we're going in that marketing strategy for the coins. That commitment has been made as a moral obligation. I'm carrying the can for other people's stuff ups. Now, let me make this clear though. Of the 40 million that came in through those investors, there's only 34 million of loyal people. And the sting came out and 6 million will get nothing. $6 million is put in by those investors who went behind my back will get nothing. Zip. And good luck to you. Because I would be, and say to you, not many people that were facing massive onslaught by government and bankruptcy would even contemplate about looking after people who had lost their money. But that's how I am with it. If I'm going to get this massive reward because of their stupidity worth 500 million, not because I said so, but because BDO said so, then I'm going to share that and reward those people that have stuck all these years. So that's the loyalty. And same with the loyalty that we see with the ZuCoin buyers today. You will get 120% commitment loyalty from me that we're going to make this global in every respect. Now, I mean, if I want to close off, and that's all about the regulations that I've talked about, because you can't just wander into a new market and say, hello, I'm here, like in America. You know, we're going to save ourselves $50 million because we don't need to be money remittance license holders. We're going to save annual fees in the order of 2 to 3 million a year, let alone costs of staffing, as we unleash the product. And we've also got behind the scenes, in every jurisdiction we tackle, we make sure that the product itself, in this case ZuCoins, is compliant with those particular laws. Hence, we talked about the Zangul report. Now, the Zangul report is an isolated value proposition in relation to the coins. It doesn't bring on board the software that sits behind because of Ezybonds and the software that sits behind because of ZuCas. And we're already a B+ rating in that regard anyway. But having said that, that rating is powerful. It's powerful because it tells you the direction we're heading into and what we're saving in overheads, because we've already had the 13 lead-up journey. Now, I really get great amusement because, you know, one of my sparring partners in the media is an older gentleman, Neil Chenoweth. Now, Neil prides himself as an investigative journalist. Ooh, spooky. He digs deep. He brings out the bad stuff. But the problem with Neil is he doesn't dig deep enough. I mean, I've got Neil's phone number. I've told him to ring me 24/7 whenever he wants to know the facts. But it's all about the scoop. It's about the scoop. Now, on the 25th of March 2018, the other document that people love reading about me is a financial review article written by Neil on the Paradise Papers. Oh, I mean, how lucky was Neil? He found some secret documents. He's made a scoop that Alan Endres is hiding assets in the Cook Islands or hiding assets anywhere in the world. Well, guess what? They're not hidden, but they're there. I'm telling you now, because no one's going to touch them. Because when you've got a $500 million value in a software business, it could be sold overnight because of the accounting system that we built uniquely. It's very valuable. But Neil wants to promote this fact. And in fact, he says, oh, he's got 50 million tucked away over there. Well, it's not 50 million. It's 10 times that. So why would you believe anything these people write? Because they write things when they get a phone call from the government to say, let's put some bad publicity and try and stop this guy from pursuing the court case. Neil is just a lackey, a financial review investigative journalist lackey to try and discredit and taint your profile. Well, I love it. I mean, those articles, there's so many errors in them because people don't research. I mean, he's got a heading in there that says Ezybonds a scam. Well, he should ring up Austrac. He should ring up the Texas authorities and invite you to go and have a look at it. He should ring up BDO and look at the independent reports and what it means and what we've done in that journey and what I've done with shareholders that were loyal and what I continue to do. So don't for a minute that you look at articles and you see it and you worry about the chatter that's there. Today's episode is a hard-hitting episode to bring to the fore the power of what we've built, the strength of how that's going to work in the future, and certainly put on the table for the first time that it's just nonsense. I don't have any fear in relation to the promotional products. And when I start talking a bit later, which will be a bit shorter, I just wanted to put this out there so it's on the record in the public forum, that the advertising and the concepts we have to ensure that we get global traction will blow your mind, because we've been experimenting with it and we know what works and how it's going to work, particularly the contracts and deals that we had and what we tested with some very prominent merchants, which I'll talk about those. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the Ezybonds saga. There's been amazing twists and turns. Lost some very close friends out of it because of their fear of what the internet can produce and write about somebody, and B, their incompetence at the end of the day to understand corporate structuring and the way things work in that world. You know, don't just believe things because you've seen it posted. Do your homework and research. It's exactly like the software. You know, for years and for 500 odd years, we've believed double entry is important. Well, it's not. I mean, computers don't wake up one morning and say, "Oh, wow, I've got to produce this in double entry." They're just numbers and algorithms that allow things to happen. It's the same with the split chain. You know, we've been spending since 2009 all this time that blockchain is the only way to go. Well, it's not. It's a cumbersome, lumpy process that hasn't been thought through. But if you think it through, and the experience we learnt with Ezybonds was you can do it a different way. You can fragment the data. You can control the way in which that data is minimized on the network, which means you can get far more efficiencies. And it means that you can deliver these products that I've talked about. I mean, don't get hamstrung on what Zukaz is doing just with its products, because as an open source, there will be millions of combinations of things that take advantage of ZuCoins to use it. That's what it's all about, not just the ideas that we have. I've touted our ideas. You know, you've got the virtual real estate is a massive market. You've got the lottery, which is proof in terms of the work we've done many years with these valuations as to what it's going to be doing. So you've then got the UDAs, you know, NFTs. Be careful. They're a joke. They're a joke. And they're a joke because you've got no control of the damn thing and you can lose it. It's just a way in which the item is described on the chain, and it points it to another direction and says it's stored over there. You'll lose your money. UDAs, you'll get control. You'll have it. You'll own it. You'll transfer it. You'll use it. And it'll have nothing to do with any third parties. That's the key. I've got some interesting topics which will be a bit shorter, certainly talking about the way in which the world's working with governments and how that powerful it is to get our handle back and get control of your assets. And again, there'll be a session on asset protection. I cannot stress enough that if you think you live in a bubble and there's someone out there waiting to whack you from whatever left field it comes from, you will lose your assets. And I want to make sure that from what I've learned, you get the free advices, you get the free documents that at least by signing a trust declaration, you will at least preserve and protect your asset. And don't go down the road that I've been of building up those assets again from scratch. It's a very difficult road. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think if you look at the timelines here now, I've chewed up most of what I wanted to say. I wanted to put on the public record. Certainly, you know, it's available there. I'm here in relation to that, and I look forward to the next few live sessions, especially the asset protection, which I've talked about. I want to make sure that you're in box seat with that. because you are going to become wealthy. And I don't want to see that for whatever reason that you end up being in a predicament that you don't have access to your assets to even help fight what may come or may not come, because it's lurking around the corner, and it only goes away when you die. When you die, all those issues and problems go with you. But in the meantime, we're on this incredible journey, and let's make it work that I can share that experience, uh, and also the way in which that experience works with loved ones as well, and family and friends, because those that you think are closest to you aren't, and it can have devastating effects in relation to what you've heard about Ezybonds UK, where it took 3 years for those guys to lose that money in that company. And at that stage, it would have been in excess of £900,000, to the detriment of people that put hard-earned dollars into that vehicle over that journey. And to my Ezybond shareholders, I thank you, and I'm excited that you'll see the returns and rewards that you rightly deserve, and look forward to that excitement and momentum building. So, everybody, it's time to be safe, be zoo kind, because it's zoo time.